Shortly after his departure from Fleetwood Mac in May 1970, Peter Green traded his vintage 1959 Gibson Les Paul with Gary Moore after coming to the conclusion that he no longer needed the guitar anymore. Green's signature Les Paul, which is heard during Green's time with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers and on Fleetwood Mac tracks like Albatross and Oh Well, was worth way more than whatever Gary could give him. According to the YouTube channel 5 Watt World, Green purchased the 1959 Gibson Les Paul Standard Burst in 1965 at Selmer Music near London's Tin Pan Alley in 1965 for £414. Peter Green never actually explained why he chose to play a Les Paul so early in his career, but given that he was influenced by American blues greats like B.B. King, Otis Rush, and T-Bone Walker, it's easy to assume that he wanted a guitar with humbucker pickups to replicate the sound of his idols. Before he joined John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, Green did notice that Eric Clapton played a Gibson Les Paul, which also could have influenced his decision. According to an interview with Andy Ellis in the November 2000 issue of Guitar Player magazine, Peter said, "I never had a magic one. Mine wasn't magical. It might have looked similar to others from a distance, but it was an old-fashioned one with a funny-shaped neck, a kind of semicircle neck. It just barely worked. The pickups were strong, but I took one of them off. I copied Eric Clapton. Unlike most Les Pauls, Green's guitar was a rarity among players for its out-of-phase sound, giving it a nasal tone that was rare among most." In the same interview, Peter would reveal how exactly he got that tone, and said it was inspired by Clapton. "I heard him play one night, and he was on the treble pickup all night long. It sounded so good. I thought I'd take my bass pickup off altogether, try and wait for the same luck. I put it back the wrong way around so that the poles, the pickup screws, were facing the opposite direction." The guitar, which can be heard on John Mayall and the Blues Breakers' 1967 album, A Hard Road, was the only Blues Breakers album Green featured on. The guitar was also played on Fleetwood Mac's first 3 albums, including the band's self-titled debut album and follow-up album Mr. Wonderful, which were both released in 1968, and 1969's Then Play On. Gary Moore first saw Peter Green when he was just 14 years old, during a performance with the Blues Breakers. Moore later spoke about the performance in a 1995 interview with Music Radar, saying, "I'd seen him play with John Mayall just after Eric had left the band when I was 14. He had a Selmer amplifier, which was rented because no one could afford to bring their own gear, and he had to play All Your Love. The moment that he plugged in, he went into that lick at the start, and I remember the whole room was vibrating. It was an amazing experience just to hear a guitarist walk on stage and plug into this amplifier and get this incredible sound. I never heard anything like it, and I thought, God, if I could ever get a guitar to sound like that, or even better, to have that guitar." He was absolutely fantastic. Everything about him was so graceful. Anyways, later on, when Skid Row opened for Fleetwood Mac at the National Stadium in Dublin, around 1969 or 1970, I was only 16 or 17 at the time, and Peter had said to this DJ who was hosting the show that he'd like to meet me. I was really thrilled, because Peter was one of my big heroes, and so I just went up and said hello, and he said, "Oh, I really like your playing. Do you want to come back to the hotel afterwards and we'll have a chat?" I had to go and play another gig after that, but he waited for me back at the hotel, and I went up to the room, and there was Mick Fleetwood and Peter sharing a room, and he had the guitars on the bed. We both sat there and talked all night and played together, no amps or anything. There weren't any practice amps in those days, so we just played and talked all night. Then I traveled with him to the next gig, and he persuaded his manager to bring Skid Row over to England, and then we stayed in touch after that for quite a while. Because Peter took a liking to Gary early on, and he was supportive of his career, he lent Gary the Les Paul for a few days before asking him if he wanted to buy it. But given that it was an extremely prized guitar with a rich history attached to it, Gary told Peter that he simply couldn't afford it. Since Peter saw how much Gary took good care of his guitar when he lent it to him, and because he wanted to give the guitar to an owner who would put it to good use, he agreed to sell the guitar at a very low price. He told Gary that all he wanted was £120 for the guitar, which is what he originally paid for it back in 1965. In a 1995 interview with Guitarist magazine, Gary later said of the transaction, he said it wasn't the money that he was interested in, he just wanted it to have a good home. So he told me to take my guitar and sell it, and whatever I got for it, I could give him. So it would be like swapping guitars. I had an SG at the time, and so I took it into town, and I sold it for £160 or something, and he came up to my flat for the money and gave me 40 or 50 quid back. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll just take what I paid for it, which was 120 quid. But he said he wouldn't even do that, and so I think I ended up giving him 100 or 110 pounds. I said to him if he ever wanted it back, I'd give it to him, but he said, no, I'll never ask for it back. Peter Green, who performed music on and off for the remainder of his life until his retirement in 2010, never wanted the guitar back from Gary. Moore would make the Les Paul his main guitar throughout most of his career and played the guitar in bands like Thin Lizzy, Skid Row, Coliseum 2, and BBM. Moore also played the guitar on signature tracks like Parisian Walkways, The Messiah Will Come Again, and during live performances of Still Got the Blues. On May 29, 1995, Gary Moore released a blues cover album dedicated to Peter Green called Blues for Greeny. The album consists of 14 songs that Green originally created, spanning from his work with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers to Fleetwood Mac. Since Gary wanted to get as close to the sound Peter achieved on the original recordings, he performed the entire album using the Greeny Les Paul. During an interview promoting the album in 1995, Gary described why he created the album, saying, I don't really like to use that word tribute because the guy's alive. Peter Green's not dead. People may say it's a tribute album, but for me it's a thank you album. It's dedicated to Peter, it's his music, but it's more an appreciation. Me saying thank you to him for everything that he's given me, both musically and personally. He also stated that he did try to emulate his sound playing Green's guitar, but he wanted to make the songs his own by adding his character and unique feel to the songs, which shows the contrast between Gary and Peter's playing. He didn't want to play everything exactly like Peter did, and the album perfectly shows that. The album was well received by blues lovers and guitar purists and gave Peter Green a career resurgence. Confirmed by Gibson.com's page on the history of the guitar, Gary Moore sold Peter Green's Les Paul in 2006 due to financial issues to a private collector for an undisclosed amount of money. The price, which has been speculated to exceed the six-figure mark, was an enormous regret for Gary since he was never able to reclaim the guitar ever again. In a 2006 issue of Classic Rock magazine, it was reported that Phil Winfield of Maverick Music had purchased the guitar from Moore, and shortly after his purchase, he listed the guitar on his website for a price tag of $2 million. In an interview with Joe Bonamassa, Guitar Player magazine would confirm that the guitar would again switch hands before finding a home with guitar collector Melvin Franks. However, it was only through guitar dealer Richard Henry that Franks would be able to sell the guitar. Since Henry was a known guitar dealer with connections to many famous guitarists, it was offered to a number of legendary players, one of which was Joe Bonamassa. In March 2013, Bonamassa was given an opportunity to play the guitar during his performance at London's Royal Albert Hall, and shortly after the show, was offered a chance to buy the guitar before anyone else. Despite that Bonamassa loved playing the guitar, he felt like the guitar just wasn't meant for him and declined the offer, which he later said that he has no regrets about. During an appearance on The Howard Stern Show in 2023, the members of Metallica told the story behind Kirk Hammett's purchase of the guitar in 2014. Lead singer James Hetfield said that he was initially offered the chance to buy the guitar before Kirk ever played it, but turned it down after hearing its price tag of $2 million. He later joked that he was an idiot for not buying it, and Kirk set the record straight on how he came to buy it, saying, "No, that's the rumor. I would never pay a couple $1 million for just about anything. The owner came to me, he was in financial straits, and I said to him, I'm not going to buy a $2 million guitar. He said, it's not $2 million, that's poppycock. And so he brought it to my hotel, I plugged it in, and literally within 30 seconds, I said, You're not getting this guitar back because it's an amazing sounding guitar. But even after playing the guitar that fateful afternoon, Hammett still had reservations about purchasing the guitar. According to GuitarWorld.com, Hammett said that he went to ask for the advice of another legendary guitarist who made the Les Paul famous, saying, "The evening of the day I looked at it, I sent a message to Jimmy Page through a friend of mine saying, 'Jimmy, what do you think of this guitar?' And Jimmy's reaction was, 'I remember that guitar. You should absolutely buy it.' So it seems that even Jimmy Page gave his approval and urged Hammett to purchase the legendary petergreen Gary Moore Les Paul. Hammett would also compare the out-of-phase sound of the guitar to a Fender Stratocaster being played in the middle position through a cranked Marshall stack, which he loved. He also contributed the sound of the guitar to an accident that happened when it was in the trunk of Gary Moore's car. The story goes that someone rear-ended Gary's car while the guitar was in the trunk, which broke the neck of the guitar, forcing Gary to have the neck repaired. While the guitar experienced damage, Kirk claims that whenever a broken neck is fixed on a Les Paul, for some reason it sounds much better, which is why the Greeny Les Paul sounds so beefy and full. Before Peter Green's death in 2020, Hammett was even able to reconnect the guitar with its original owner one last time. Also, 5 months before Green's death on July 25th, 2020, Hammett played the iconic Greeny guitar at a tribute concert named Mick Fleetwood and Friends Celebrate the Music of Peter Green and the Early Years of Fleetwood Mac, where he covered the song The Green Manalishi. But it's good to see Kirk carry on the legacy of the guitar by playing it live during Metallica concerts instead of it being locked up behind glass in a museum. But what did you guys think of this story? What's your favorite guitarist that's played this guitar? Let us know in the comments down below, and like and share the video if you enjoyed it. If you would like to see more videos just like this one, please subscribe to the channel, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.